Alright, today we're talking about one of the darkest, smartest, and most brutal Rick and Morty episodes ever. No Atlantis, no wacky sea creatures, just full-scale political drama, systemic oppression, and one of the coldest villain reveals in the show's history. And of course, Morty proving he's just as terrifying as Rick. Let's get into it. The fake-out, Rick and Morty's fun adventure. The episode tricks you immediately. Rick and Morty are like, wubba lubba dub dub, let's go to Atlantis.
All right, Morty, you ready for our adventure to the lost city of Atlantis?
Ready as I'll ever be, Rick!
And you think this is going to be a goofy filler episode? No pee. Instead, we hard cut to the Citadel, the home of thousands of Ricks and Morty, all stuck in a sci-fi hellscape. And we stay there for the entire episode. What follows is a brutal deep dive into the worst place in the multiverse. First up, the Mortys. They live in slums. They work in factories. They get abused by Ricks, because of course they do. One Morty tries to rally them into a rebellion. Now's melts. And how does that go? He gets shot. This place is a nightmare. Storyline number 2. The corrupt cop Ricks. Then, we've got the Rick police. Meet Cop Rick and Rookie Morty. Cop Rick is dirty as hell. Rookie Morty actually has a conscience. At first, you think, oh, maybe Morty will clean up the system. NOPE. Because Rookie Morty gets corrupted immediately. By the end of the episode, he straight up executes his own partner. They're learning from Rick. Storyline number 3. The Evil Morty campaign. And finally, the most important part of the episode. A Morty is running for president. No Rick backing him. No chaos. Just a Morty rising through the system. And what happens? He wins. And then he kills everyone who opposed him. Ricks, advisors, opposition, all gone. The episode ends with Evil Morty in full control. And if you weren't scared of him before, you are now.
Yes, goddamn yes! Great!
Good. This seems like a good time for a drink and a cold, calculated speech with sinister overtones.
Final thoughts. Evil Morty played the long game. By the end of the episode, the Citadel is under new management. Evil Morty just pulled off the most brutal political coup in sci-fi history. And Rick and Morty, they're off screen, chilling in Atlantis, having no idea this even happened. Moral of the story? Never underestimate a Morty, the golden herd, because one of them just outplayed every Rick in existence. Alright, today we're talking about the episode where Morty lets a death crystal control his entire life, and Rick just keeps dying. Time loop insanity? Check. Rick being an arrogant mess? And Morty taking fate way too seriously? Oh, you bet. Let's get into it. Death crystals. So Rick and Morty are looting an alien battlefield, as you do, and they come across death crystals. What do? They let you see how you die.
You're thinking of bullets, Morty. Death crystals show you how you're gonna die.
Naturally, Morty becomes obsessed with making sure his death leads to one specific outcome. Dying old in Jessica's arms, which sounds kinda sweet. Until he lets it dictate literally everything he does. Like, everything. Morty goes full psycho. Instead of just, living normally, Morty starts making every single move based on keeping that Jessica death timeline intact. And what does that lead to? He stops talking. He starts committing crimes. He literally lets Rick die because the crystal told him to. Like, my guy? Maybe check on your grandfather before driving into a cliff. But nope. Morty is locked in. And things only get worse. Meanwhile, Rick keeps coming back horribly. Now, normally, when Rick dies, he has backup clones. But guess what? This time, his clones are waking up in the worst alternate dimensions possible. Fascist Rick? Yep. Shrimp Rick? Of course. Teddy Bear Rick? Why not? Every time Rick reincarnates, he just gets angrier at how stupid his clones' realities are. Morty hits rock bottom, literally, back in Mortyland. Things have gone from quirky life choices to full-scale war criminal. The military is after him. He fuses with a mutated cyborg abomination. He kills dozens of people, all to keep his perfect future. And then, guess what? She never wanted to be his soulmate.
The real lonely people. I'm gonna look at their name tags and I'm gonna say, I love you.
Oh, I was just saying random stuff about death. I don't think about this stuff at all. Morty. Internal screaming. The realization hits. Morty just ruined everything for literally no reason. Rick returns to wreck Morty's nonsense. Rick, finally back, immediately fixes everything by slapping Morty out of his idiocy. And in classic Rick fashion, he reminds Morty, you can't control the future, dumbass. Also, maybe don't turn into a warlord next time. The episode ends with Rick learning nothing, Morty traumatized as hell, and Jessica still completely oblivious. Classic. Final thoughts. Morty's worst life choice yet? By the end of the episode, Rick dies like 50 times but doesn't care. Morty proves he's just as capable of mass destruction as Rick. Moral of the story? Trying to control the future turns you into a monster. Alright, today we're talking about one of the most important episodes in Rick and Morty history. We finally get Rick's backstory. The Citadel? Gone. Evil Morty? The ultimate winner. And best of all, Rick actually has to face his trauma. Let's get into it. Rick C-137. The broken man behind the madness. For years, we've heard the rumors. Rick is the smartest man in the universe. He's a nihilistic, detached drunk. He never talks about his past. Well, guess what? This episode confirms what we feared. Rick wasn't always like this. He had a wife, a daughter, a life. Then, another Rick showed up, killed his family, left him broken. From that moment on, Rick C-137 became something else. He stopped caring about everything. He built the Citadel, then abandoned it. He killed thousands of Ricks, but never found the one who ruined his life. This isn't just, oh, Rick is sad. This is, Rick is fundamentally broken and he'll never be okay. Meanwhile, Evil Morty plays 4D chess. While Rick is out here getting emotionally wrecked, Evil Morty is playing the long game. He runs the Citadel.
They really did make a you the president.
And I hate him every day for it, but wow, Rick C-137. Now that's a guy to move your schedule around for. Not here to blow the place up again, I hope.
He manipulates the entire system. And when he finally gets what he wants, he destroys everything. His goal? Escape the central finite curve, which, in simple terms, is the Rick-controlled section of the multiverse. Every universe in the curve? Rick is the smartest person alive. Every universe outside it is dull. Rick is don't run the show. Evil Morty wants out. And unlike every other Morty, he actually does it. The fall of the Citadel. In one of the most insane finales ever, Evil Morty murders every high-ranking Citadel official, destroys the entire structure, and walks into the unknown. The episode ends with the biggest status quo shift in the series. The Citadel? Gone. Rick? More broken than ever. Morty? Questioning everything. Evil Morty? For once, Rick didn't win. And that changes everything. Final thoughts. The smartest Morty beat every Rick. By the end of the episode, we finally understand Rick's pain. Evil Morty is officially out of the system. And the Citadel? Just another ruin in the multiverse. Moral of the story? You can outsmart a Rick. You just have to be even colder than he is. Alright, today we're talking about the episode where Morty thinks he found true love, and then reality slaps him in the face. A doomed romance? Morty going full psycho? And Summer and Rick on the most irresponsible bender ever? Let's get into it. Morty falls in
Very
love.
special guy.
So are you two dating?
Oh,
Yes, we are.
Which means it's doomed. So Morty meets Planetina, a literal eco-warrior goddess who's basically, if Captain Planet was more magical and way hotter. She fights pollution. She's kind. And she actually likes Morty back? For a moment, it actually seems like Morty is going to be happy. But here's the thing, the universe hates when Morty is happy. And this time, it's about to emotionally body slam him. The Planeteers are the worst people alive. Turns out, Planetina's parents, the Planeteers, are greedy, selfish dirtbags. They don't care about the planet. They only care about controlling her. And the second Morty gets close, they try to sell her off. Morty, being 14 and madly in love, decides, and he does. Like not even in a funny Rick way. He murders them, brutally, with zero hesitation. We're not talking haha zany sci-fi murder. We're talking full-on blood-soaked revenge rampage. And the worst part? He does it for nothing. Planetina isn't who Morty thinks she is. After all that, Morty and Planetina finally get to be together. But, turns out she's not just some innocent, peaceful spirit. She's extreme. She'll do anything for the planet. Even destroy entire towns and kill innocent people. Morty suddenly realizes she's just as dangerous as Rick, maybe worse. And just like that, his dream girl becomes his nightmare, the breakup that wrecks Morty. In one of the most painful scenes ever, Morty breaks up with her. She cries. Morty cries. And then we see it. Morty is absolutely shattered. He doesn't just shed a tear. He full oxygen mononitride ugly cries, collapsing into his mom's arms. This isn't cartoon heartbreak. This is raw, real, and gut-wrenching. And you know what Rick says? Now, nothing, because he knows this one actually hurt. Meanwhile, Rick and Summer go full disaster mode. While Morty is living his tragic romance movie, Rick and Summer are on an apocalyptic vacation. They visit planets that are about to be destroyed. They party with doomed civilizations. Rick hooks up with an alien queen, and when she dies, Rick, in classic fashion, immediately moves on. It's a perfect contrast to Morty's heartbreak.
The meteor's almost here. We can go now.
Nah, we still got time.
Well, then stop being in love and start having fun.
Oh, love's pretty fun, Summer. Give it a chance.
It's not even real love.
Rick lives in chaos and never gets attached. Morty actually loves and loses everything. Final thoughts. The saddest Morty episode ever? By the end of the episode, Morty is emotionally wrecked. Rick and Summer are still partying now, and the universe remains a cruel, unforgiving place. Moral of the story? Love isn't enough, and sometimes, the people we love will still destroy us. Alright, today we're talking about the episode where Rick and Morty try to fix themselves and somehow end up breaking everything. Self-improvement gone horribly wrong? Morty turning into a psychotic alpha bro? Absolutely. Rick realizing he needs to be a toxic mess? Oh, you bet. Let's get into it. Rick and Morty need a break, badly. So the episode kicks off with the most chaotic adventure ever. Rick and Morty nearly die. They crash their ship. They are completely traumatized. And in a moment of pure, desperate exhaustion, Rick says, "Okay, let's take a vacation."
We need a vacation.
Because let's be real, these two never stop. They need a break. But because this is Rick and Morty, you already know. This vacation is about to ruin their lives. The toxin cleanse that goes horribly wrong. At the spa, Rick signs them up for a detox machine.
Psychological detox removes all your cognitive toxins, purifies your system.
Sounds harmless, right? Just remove all the negativity and bad vibes? Nope. The machine doesn't just remove stress. It literally removes their toxic traits. Morty loses all his self-doubt and insecurity. Rick loses all his arrogance, cruelty, and cynicism. Basically, they become better versions of themselves, or at least they think they do. Morty turns into a smooth-talking maniac. With all his insecurity removed, Morty becomes a confident, charming, high-functioning psychopath. He gets a girlfriend in 5 minutes. He charms his entire school. He becomes an investment broker? Like, this is a whole different Morty. And honestly, it's terrifying. Because without his self-doubt, he has zero empathy. By the time he's casually manipulating people in business deals, you realize he's just dangerous now. Rick, meanwhile, becomes nice? On the other side of things, Rick is suddenly polite, patient, and friendly.
I hope I'm not interrupting. Morty, a moment of your time?
Now, and you know what? It makes him miserable. He tries being nice to Morty. He feels emotions. He actually cares about people. And he hates it. Because for Rick, being toxic is literally part of his survival. Without his self-loathing and arrogance, he's just a sad, useless guy. And he realizes pretty fast, he needs to get his toxicity back. The toxic versions return and they're worse than ever. Turns out all their toxic traits weren't just deleted. They were turned into living beings. And now, Toxic Rick and Toxic Morty want to take over.
You said we were merging. I lied, dumbass. I lie about everything.
Toxic Rick is pure ego, cruelty, and chaos. Toxic Morty is just a terrified, pathetic wreck. It's like looking at the worst parts of themselves, taken to 1000%.
Hear this, Morty?
Oh, everybody hates me, I can tell. You all hate
All right,
me.
shut up, Morty. Healthy Rick, are we doing this or what?
And the moment Toxic Rick takes over, he goes on an insane rampage. Because Rick can't function without his toxicity. And honestly, neither can Morty. The big lesson. You can't just delete your flaws. By the end of the episode, Rick and Morty put themselves back together, and they learn a brutal truth. You can't just delete the bad parts of yourself. They're part of who you are. Trying to remove them just makes things worse. Rick goes back to being a self-destructive genius. Morty goes back to being a nervous wreck. And everything? Back to normal.
Jacqueline, I wasn't who I said I was.
You weren't a 14-year-old boy from the Midwest who ran away from his family and capitalized on his lack of conscience by becoming a stockbroker?
Because as much as they hate their flaws, they need them. Final thoughts. Self-improvement? Overrated. By the end of the episode, Rick realizes he's better as a mess. Morty learns confidence isn't always a good thing, and self-improvement? Maybe not for them. Moral of the story? Fixing yourself isn't as simple as deleting your flaws. Because sometimes, the things that make you toxic are also the things that make you, well, you. Alright, today we're diving into the episode that gave us one of the most chaotic, unhinged, and meme-worthy creatures in Rick and Morty history, the Meeseeks. Instant helpers? Cool. Super friendly? Yep. Turn into existential nightmares if they can't complete a task? Oh, absolutely. And at the center of it all? Stressed, overwhelmed, always in danger Morty. This is the story of how Morty barely survived a universe where even his helpers had a mental breakdown. Let's get into it.
This is a Meeseeks box. Let me show you how it works. You press this.
I'm Mr. Meeseeks! Look at me!
The Meeseeks box. The best/worst idea ever. So the episode kicks off with Rick handing the family a Meeseeks box. Press the button, summon a Meeseeks, give them a task, and they complete it. Then they poof out of existence. Simple, right? Yeah, if you're not Morty. The Smiths use it, and it works. Beth and Summer use the box correctly. Beth wants to be a more complete woman. Summer wants to be popular. Boom! Their Meeseeks handle it instantly.
Valuable and enriching experience of your young lives. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Look at me. Thank you.
And then there's Morty. Morty doesn't even want to use the box. He knows how bad Rick's inventions get. But the universe doesn't care about what Morty wants, because as soon as the box is introduced, chaos follows him. The Meeseeks nightmare begins. Jerry tries to use the box for something as dumb as golf. But Morty is the one stuck in the middle when things go horribly wrong. The Meeseeks start losing their minds.
Jerry, you mind if we get back to the task at hand? Meeseeks don't usually have to exist this long. It's getting weird.
They multiply, get desperate, and completely snap. And guess who's left trying to reason with an army of existentially tormented blue creatures? After failing for way too long, the Meeseeks reach their only logical conclusion. We must kill someone.
I'm Mr. Meeseeks, look at me. I say follow through. Who's with me? Follow through. I'm Mr. Meeseeks, look at me. Kill him.
They take over a restaurant. They are fully prepared to commit murder. All because this family can't function normally for one episode. Morty didn't even summon a Meeseeks. But somehow, he's the one stuck in the middle of this nightmare. Meanwhile, Rick and Morty are in a whole different disaster. As if the Meeseeks uprising wasn't enough, Rick drags Morty into another deadly adventure. Morty gets his own side quest.
Sorts of fantasy things. We're going on a quest, okay?
Can't wait.
It immediately turns into a medieval horror movie. Rick watches Morty commit a war crime. And honestly, none of that is as insane as what's happening back home. Because back home, the Meeseeks have declared war, the final showdown. By the time the house turns into a battlefield, after what feels like an eternity of chaos, Jerry finally manages to hit his stupid golf shot. And just like that, the Meeseeks are free. The chaos ends, and Morty somehow survives another day in this nightmare existence. Final thoughts. Rick and Morty survive another horrible adventure. The Meeseeks are gone, but forever traumatized. And Morty? Well, Morty didn't even ask for this. Moral of the story? If you ever get a Meeseeks box, do not let this family near it. Meeseeks are cute until they experience Smith family frustration. And above all, Morty deserves therapy. Alright, today we're talking about the episode where Morty learns that love potions and mad science don't mix. A mutant apocalypse? Check. Rick being the absolute worst role model? Check. And a dark as hell ending that still haunts us? Oh, you bet. Let's get into it. Morty's dumbest idea yet. So Morty, being a hormonal 14-year-old, is desperate to get with Jessica.
You're missing the point, Dad. I don't want girls. I want Jessica.
Instead of, talking to her like a normal person, he asks Rick for a love potion.
Could you make some sort of chemical thing happen inside of Jessica's mind?
And Rick, instead of saying literally anything responsible, just goes, yeah, sure, why not?
This is the chemical released in a mammal's brain, that makes it fall in love.
Because at the end of the day, Rick loves science experiments more than he loves solving problems. The apocalypse happens immediately. At first, it works. Jessica falls in love with Morty. Mission accomplished, right? Wrong, because Jessica has the flu, and the love potion mutates, turning into an airborne virus that makes everyone obsessed with Morty. The entire school, Rabid, the whole city, losing their mind. Beth, Summer, Jerry, gone full psycho. The world literally becomes a thirsty zombie apocalypse. And Morty? Morty is terrified.
What the hell is going on, Rick?
Rick fixes it, and somehow makes it worse. Rick, in classic whoops my bad fashion, tries to reverse the damage. Does it work? Absolutely not. Instead, he mutates everyone even worse. People stop being people. They start turning into grotesque, fleshy Cronenberg monsters. The entire human race is now permanently screwed. Rick literally made things so bad that fixing it is no longer an option. And what's his brilliant solution? Just leave.
The whole world is infected.
Yeah, it's pretty wild how fast that spread. I've really outdone myself.
The darkest ending in season 1. Instead of fixing the mess, Rick grabs Morty, jumps to an alternate reality, and replaces themselves. Like, literally. They find a reality where they died. They bury their own corpses, and they just start living there like nothing happened. And that's when it hits. This is Morty's life now. He has to wake up every day knowing he destroyed his original world. And his family? They're still out there, mutated, suffering, and lost. This isn't just dark. This is. Stare at the floor in silence after the credits. Final thoughts. Morty's first real trauma. By the end of the episode, the OG Earth is a permanent wasteland. Rick doesn't care. Morty buries his own corpse and just has to deal with it. This was the moment Morty truly realized what traveling with Rick meant. Moral of the story? Never ask Rick for a love potion, because you might just have to bury yourself in the backyard.